आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्त्वनिवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So we are at almost at the end of this section of classes on attaining non-attachment. So today is number 9, and I think that I will have another class next week, which will be our number 10 in this series, and then that would pretty much wrap up the central ideas that Swami Akhandananda has presented in this book, Vyavahara Shuddhi. And so with that, I would wrap up these classes, these series of classes. And then the following week, which will be Tuesday, the 12th of September, we will take a week off. And then the week after that, on the 19th, we will start a new text. And I will tell you about it. I'm almost sure which one I want, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm still looking into it. But there will be a text, a short text, also about 8 or 10 classes. And that's what I think I would like to do on the Tuesday night classes. And so we will do that on the 19th of September. So there will be a class next week on the 2nd of September, and then, 5th of September. And then after that, there will be no class on 1 week, which is the 12th of September. So that's the plan going forward. So the idea that we were pursuing in terms of looking at aham akarta, which is the truth, to understand how I'm the akarta, we looked at several aspects of it. And the one we were looking at is that by not knowing that I am only a very small portion of things in the world that is responsible for doing things, for progressing by participating in the entire creation, Shrishti, a very, very insignificant participant. But I overstate my importance. This abhimana is overstated. And sometimes it really gets into, often, I wouldn't say sometimes, invariably it gets into problems. So we saw the various examples from Akhandananda's discourses. So we saw that our body is maintained, our sense of working with the world is maintained with the help of lots of people, devatas. We saw the beautiful example that you will not be able to see anything unless there is some light by the Surya. And so all of the devatas are really helping us in accomplishing our actions in life. And if we don't see it, there is a price we pay for it. So here he quotes Bhagavad Gita, number 16, 16th verse of the 16th chapter, which reads, Tatra evam sati kartaram atmanam kevalam tu yaha pashyati akrita buddhitvat na pashyati durmatihi. Tatra evam sati. Tatra evam sati means this is a sati saptami, which means this being the case. So he's already provided Bhagavad Gita, and Lord Krishna has already provided the context for it. This being the case. And this being the case means he's proven, while so many things are involved, you're not the only karta. So he says, Tatra evam sati kartaram atmanam kevalam tu yaha. So here atmanam could be called jivatma, that I am the doer. Kevalam atmanam kartaram iti tu manyate, tu yaha manyate. Then what happens to it? Pashyati akrita buddhitvat na pashyati durmati. So this durmati means they kind of like a blind person, one who is mad, who doesn't understand things, and who doesn't have the capacity to look at things as they are. So, there are acharyas who say that, for example, supposing you are under the influence of some drugs, or you have gone mad, then they don't look at things properly. What the other people can see very normally, but these people say, oh my gosh, this is what happens sometimes. They murder people because they think that someone is asking them to murder. Strange ideas come about. So similarly, durmatihi means that we don't understand the truth. And we don't understand the buddhi which is generated by Shastra. We don't understand that. So as a result, we get into a problem. So here, Swami Akhandanandaji, in order to really make a dramatic statement on what happens to a person like this, he gives this example. That I think, I don't know if I gave you this already in the last class. I was briefly looking at what the end of the class was. I wasn't sure. I don't think so. So forgive me if this is a repetition. That there was a man traveling from New Delhi to South India, let's say Chennai, which means it's a long journey and there's night and day and all kinds of, there's a lot going on. So when he got into his compartment to go on the train, there are two other people that came in and put in a big box and they kept it in the compartment. And they told this guy, listen, we're just going to go get some food and just make sure that this does not get stolen in the meantime. So will you please take care of it? So he says, yeah, okay, I'm sitting here. I'll keep an eye on it. So he was keeping an eye on the box. Now, these two guys did not return when the train started. So he says, that's very funny. This is a nice looking box. And they did not return. So he thought, well, maybe they would come to the next station somehow. Or so the whole evening passed, night passed, the whole day passed, and they did not return. So he reaches Chennai, and then he says, if nobody is claiming it, I might as well claim it. I'll call this as my box. So, so the ticket master in Chennai asked him, is this your box? So he says, yeah, this is my box. So he says, okay, please. So he takes he called some coolies, people who carry these heavy boxes, and says, please take this gentleman's box, and so on. They started smelling something really bad from that box, as though there was something dying. So the coolies also called the administration and said, sir, there's something wrong here. So they said, okay, open it up. When they opened it up, there was a dead body inside the box. So the police immediately handcuffed this guy, because he says, who does this belong to? Who does this box belong to? So they all said, sir, he's the one who told us to do this. So they said, okay, while we conduct an autopsy, let's take you to the jail. So they jailed him. Now this person says, no, this is not my box. It was just left over by somebody. He says, we will look into that, but right now, no bailable, this is a non-bailable offense. You stay in this, and then you will have to argue, and whatever it is, but you are the culprit. This is what happens. Swami Akhandananda says, this looks like a very macabre story, really gruesome, if you think about it. But he says, do you know this is what happens to people who leave this life without discovering their own truth? What do you mean by not discovering the own truth? Meaning that this body and this mind and these sense organs are mine. They're all mine. So it's not really true, because you may have played some minor role in keeping it going, but the body was given to you, the senses were given to you, your mind was given to you by somebody else. And so for you to call this as mine is, as in say in Sanskritam, is an aparadha. Aparadha means it's a crime. A very serious crime. And what is the result of this serious crime? Lord Yama comes and gets you one day. You meet Lord Yama, and you can tell him, Lord Yama, that, I don't know, I'm not ready yet, this, that, or the other. Lord Yama says, I see you on the list, it's time to go. And then you have to go through a whole shebang. You have to really find a mother and father who are willing to adopt you as a person, give you the love, and then, my goodness, what happens for so much time? You're so helpless, and it takes a long time for you to get back on your feet and to start reading books. And even then, you don't read the right books. Another life is now wasted. It's a huge price to pay for making the basic mistake of saying, this is mine. It's So this is the last of the concept that we had taken some time ago by saying that Jivatvam and Kartritvam are two sides of the same coin, and you should see that it is very related to you as a individual. There is no truth to you until you see the larger picture that it is mine. So this we will explore a little bit further, but the entire concept of saying that if you want to relieve your sense of limitation, then please work on the fact that you are not the only karta. And we gave you lots of hints, etc., etc. So that topic is now complete. Now, Swami Akhandananda says, okay, let me give you another view why you are not the karta. So we will now embark on that. And so here the Shastra says that in Taittiriya Upanishad and another Upanishad says that the entire Shrishti, entire creation, the entire Jivatvam comes out of Ananda. Anandadhi eva imani bhutani jayante. Ayandadhi eva imani bhutani jayante. They all come out of Ananda. They stay in the Ananda and go back into Ananda. So that means, kind of like, the ornaments are born out of their basic metal. And while they are existing, they are still the basic metal. And when they dissolve, they go back into the basic metal. So similarly here, Ananda is the core of our being. And we're reminded of that every night. As long as we take ourselves to be, I'm different from others. And if you have that Bheda Buddhi, then you don't have enough Ananda. But if you're not making yourself different, then your basic Ananda comes to the fore, which is in deep sleep. We have seen all that in the last 5 chapters of Panchadashi. That the core of our being, the very purpose of our life, the very goal of our actions is all about happiness. So it doesn't have to be taught. There's a basic culture. There's a basic vastu, which is Ananda for everybody. This is why you can talk a lot about to the little children about, oh, you have to keep yourself clean and you don't do this. But no one tells the child, you have to learn to be happy. Because you don't need to. That's what the child is really looking for. We have a 4-month-old grandson. And it's very easy to see that. That little kid just lies quietly smiling when he is well fed and when he is dry. And that's all that he wants. He looks around and so on. And if he cries, that means there is something wrong. Either he is wet or that he is hungry. That's it. But otherwise, he is happy for the time being. Later on, when he grows up, then will be other problems. Anyway, the point is that Ananda is the substance that we guys are made. We are all made out of. This should be very clear. This is what our Shastra clearly points out. Okay. So now the question is, what is the cause of my dukkha, my unhappiness? Because if I am made out of happiness, if my substance from which I am born, as you say, is Ananda, then how is it that I am not enjoying that Ananda all the time? What is the Srishti that gives me dukkha? This we have to really analyze and see very clearly. So here it is pointed out, and I am borrowing some words from the Mandukya, which we are going to do in more detail, but I can just borrow some quick analysis of that from the introduction to Mandukya. So here, Swami Akhandananda says that dukkha is of two types. The lack of happiness can be segmented into two classes. One is that the thing that you seek is insufficient to give you Ananda. Either it is remote, you have a desire for obtaining it and you cannot obtain it, or you have difficulty in obtaining it. So this is one thing. The second one is that your mind moves in such a way that it does not see the Ananda. It is there, but you don't see it. So in analyzing these two sources of the lack of Ananda, all the wise people say that the source of dukkha is really not in any object. So, for example, in the earth, it is not the source of your dukkha. Your money, not the source of dukkha. Your people around you, not the sources of dukkha. They are just there. You know, I don't mean that there cannot be some minor problems here and there, but as a real source, they are incapable of really acting upon you. See, they are just there around you. They are creation of Ishvara. So that is the case, then where is the dukkha? The dukkha, if you analyze upon it, is upon what is called asmita. Asmita means that you look upon things as being useful or not useful, enough or not enough. You have a sense of your own individual looking at things, and if they do not satisfy your expectations, then you have dukkha. So really the source of dukkha is the way you look at things, not the things themselves. This is a very important thing to make that distinction. Because we don't make that distinction. So what we say is that the world is bothering me. The world doesn't bother anybody. It bothers some people, it doesn't bother other people. That's because some people don't look upon the world as a botheration. Some people look upon it as a botheration. This is the difference. So therefore, asmita means me and mine. So this goes for everything. Really speaking, we have already seen this so often that, a child is a child. And certainly you and I have some extra responsibility for making sure that the child is well fed, not anybody else, but that's it. But then from our standpoint of parentship, we have a certain asmita. This is my child. And my child needs to be the best. And if he does not bring in good grades, then I'm disappointed. Every child not everybody can get an A+. And Ishvara is very happy with them. I saw this, I think you may have seen it, that in India there was this is the power of social networking. When something is interesting, then it gets passed around and lots of people see it and so on. So apparently this woman, who is now a grown-up woman, has saved the comments that her mother made when she would bring the results of certain tests from school. And apparently she was not very good at math. So sometimes she would get 0 out of 16. And the mother scribes is written down and saying, you are really brave in taking these difficult tests, but you will be successful. That one day, don't worry about it. And she says that never was I really discouraged because of this kind of a treatment from my mother. And slowly I figured it all out. I studied my mind, studied hard, and now I'm very good at it. I'm actually working in jobs that require some math. I never could imagine that. And so, it's the same way. I still remember one incident that took place. So we were all studying at PRC with under Swami Dayanandji, 1981 or so. And our younger son, Manoj, who is now, father of 2 children and so on, he was 4 years old then. And so he would go to school, nearby school, and the bus will drop him after the school. And so one day he came back. It was relatively cold, and when he came back when he stepped down from the bus, we were all sitting on a table. I still remember Swami Dayanandji was sitting on the edge of the table, and all the students were sitting there. And Manoj came in from the bus. So everybody goes, hi Manoj, good, come back, how was school today, and so on. Then my wife noticed that he had forgotten his jacket in the school. Okay, and there was a possibility that it might be stolen. It was a very good jacket. And so I didn't really interact with that part at all. But my wife said, don't worry about it. It's okay. You forgot it. So he says, oops, Mom, I didn't think about it. It's okay. It happens to everybody. So Manoj said, what if it is stolen? He says, stolen, it is stolen. We'll deal with it later. It's okay. Come and join us with our lunch. And this was the episode. Swami Dayanandji was watching this whole tamasha, and he told everybody, he says, do you know, this is how a mother should deal with the children. He said, I am so happy that Pammi did not get mad at him, didn't say, you always do things like this, you be more careful, this, that, and the other. He said she just accepted it. And the next day the guy he got his jacket back anyway. But I remember he made it into a big lesson with everybody, saying this sense of acceptance. You don't see a problem. You don't see a problem. So, in the eyes of Ishvara, there is no problem with anybody. If a person doesn't behave itself, it is because that person has such a vast background that has brought him to this position. So, there's a good word in English language which really encapsulates this. Validation. I think it's a beautiful word. I don't even know what the exact Sanskrit would be. But validation is a very beautiful word. Validation means that instead of taking quick judgments on someone, you look at all aspects of what transpired and you validate it. Then you say, that's okay. If I were you also, I would have done the same thing. Given the circumstances and your own background and what happened and so on, this is okay. So this is what is talked about, is that the dukkha. So, we saw that if everyone is born out of Ananda, everybody exists in Ananda, and everybody disappears in Ananda, then how comes there is dukkha? Where did that come from? Where does it reside? So the answer is, it resides in a myopic, skewed view of things around you. This is what is called Udara Buddhi, Vishala Buddhi. Udara Buddhi means a great buddhi. So in the case of Pammi and her dealing with her son, she had an Udara Buddhi. So what? Doesn't matter. So there must have been a reason why the fellow forgot, and my berating him in front of everybody, or even privately, is not going to be helpful. I can say that, please, next time. This is a 4-year-old. This is what is called Udara Buddhi. Means that you look at all aspects of it and your actions provide you with the right response to the situations. If you do that, you neutralize the dukkha. You don't have to generate sukha. See, we know this very well. By now, you're all students of Vedanta. You should know this by heart. We do not have to generate sukha. The sukha is our own nature. Ananda is our own nature. We just have to stop the idiotic covering of that sukha. And the way we need to do that is to take a broader look at it. So here in this lesson, there is a very beautiful word that is used in the Shastra, and especially in the Bhagavad Gita, which says, Nirdvandva Bhava. May you become Nirdvandva. Dvandva means a pair of opposites. That's what normally it refers to. It refers to other things like grammar, you can have dvandva samasa and so on. But here the word dvandva means that something which is imbibed with both goodness or badness or any shade in between. And the advice of the asangata, of the non-attachment, is strive to be in nirdvandva. Because both of them are nothing but they are variations on you which is unchanging. But then what happens is that if you don't know yourself, if you don't know that you are the Ananda, if you don't know that the Ananda is not separate from you, if you don't know that, then anything that points towards some momentary happiness, you glom onto it. Now this happens in Sukha Dukkha both. You can do bad things. Bad things meaning, like for example, road rage. There's no reason to get that upset. Even if it is not your fault and somebody else's. That happens all the time. If we just go around driving saying, I have my rights, I must go there first. We have this stop sign on Page Mill and 280, and a very busy one. And then there are left turn lanes and so on. Oh my gosh, what a tamasha it is. People get so upset if somebody, and the people do, there's some interesting people who don't, if there's another car going, they will also go along with it, even though you might have come in the other one. And so on, then there's honks and so you can let go. It's okay, people are what they are. But to really make it into a dukkha, you can get out and, now of course there's so many problems. People have revolvers and they can just take out and shoot you. All because of some simple error. So you can take an extreme view of dukkha and an extreme view of sukha also. And so all the sexual crimes that are committed are all because there's some kind of a temporary sukham. So those variations really get you into a problem. And this is only because if you don't know that you are the very core of Ananda. But through this teaching, not just casual teaching, but to really following it with some thought and vichara, thinking, ruminating over it, contemplating on it, you begin to see, my gosh, This is what Shastra says. Come. Anandad hi eva khalu. Khalu means indeed. In truth. Imani bhutani jayante. The whole Srishti comes out of Ananda. Oh, no, I don't know. You can talk about a whole Srishti, but if you look at from your own personal perspective, as soon as you wake up, as we saw in the Panchadashi, then you were Ananda, you are still Ananda, but now you are in the process of covering it and forgetting it. So for that individual, it is said, it is important for you to remind yourself that you are the Ananda. So here I think the examples given are also beautiful, that if there is a very wealthy person who has millions of dollars in their bank account, and he or she knows it, then if you lose in some transactions a couple of thousands here and a couple of thousands there, make or lose, is that going to make a big difference in that person? It doesn't. Because how can it? How can make a couple of $1,000s of losses make a difference to one who is a millionaire? Cannot be. So therefore, the advice given is, and we can now proceed further on this, is that discover your own enormous, you can't even say your property of Ananda, but you are the very Ananda. It's not only something that we can talk about $1 million that you can possess, and then yes, those $1 million can be lost. But you are the very nature of Ananda. And if you know a little bit about it, how can you be upset with small things of life? And the only reason that you still behave as being upset with small things in life is because you have not really understood the wealth that you are. That's all we can define. Or we can give you a pass. We can say, like for example, we've given this example many times before, that you are a very poor person, hand to mouth, perhaps even don't even have a home. You're a homeless person. And one day you're visited by some well-dressed, all black tie and everything, these lawyers from a BMW or a Mercedes, expensive cars. And they ask you and say, are you such and such? So he says, yeah. What do you want from me? Are you taking me to jail? He says, no. You have been left by your aunt $500 million. So after a while, then you don't believe it and this, that, or the other. But let's just fast forward. You now have the bank and so on. You got yourself an apartment, and you have now access to the money. You know you can go to the bank and get $1,000 out just like that. But your thinking is not going to change overnight. Because if something happens, if your money is taken away, if you have a fight with someone, the old way of looking at things will come back to you again. And so there you would have to remind yourself, hey, what am I doing? I'm a new person with new wealth. I don't need to be so beggarly in my attitudes. This is exactly what needs to happen. This is for people that know Vedanta, know the self-knowledge, some ideas about that. Perhaps not as clearly, but it has given you some solace. Then when you are faced with things, what should you do? So our acharyas all point out this. They said, when that happens, what you need to do is to go back to Shravanam and Mananam again. Close your eyes, think about it, read what it says, do some contemplation on it. And then if you do, what you need to then do. And so this is where the nature of karma is being talked about. So this is what, you remember in the beginning we said guna karma vibhagayo. And so guna guneshu vartate. That all these qualities are all making you function in life. You're not really the only one who are doing it. All the things that you've accumulated from your past life and your possessions of your body, your mind, and so on, they're all working. You just have to make sure that you steer them in the right direction. That's it. They're all working for you. So this is all the gunas. And then the second part of that is karma. So let's now spend a little bit of time on the nature of karma, of doing. So kartritvam, the karma itself, let us look at that. So here, there is a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. So this is chapter 5, verse number 15, 5:15. So Sri Krishna says, Na adatte kasyachit papam na cha eva sukritam vibhuhu ajnanena avritam jnanam tena muhyanti jantava. Na adatte kasyachit papam na cha evam sukritam vibhuhu ajnanena avritam jnanam tena muhyanti jantava. So what it means is that do karmas in such a way that you do not accumulate any results from the karma, either good or bad karma, bad results. Both of them are equally limiting to you. I remember Swami Dayanandji used to say that. He says, if you look at karma, both positive karma as well as negative karma, how it binds you is as follows. Suppose you did something and the results were not good. Then, in view of the fact that you fundamentally believe that by doing karma, I will get a better situation in my life. That's what really the kartritvam gives me. I don't have any other ways to improve other than doing things, making investments, and making the right choices, being engaged in it, working hard, all those kinds of things. So now, supposing you did some karma and the results were very disappointing. Your conclusion, Swamiji used to say, is, I did not do it right. And I will now correct my mistakes and redo it. So now the bad result is also conditioned you into further action that you are performing. You are still under the influence of karma. So this is the bad karma. Now supposing you had some results that exceeded your expectations. And you say, wow, that was good. You know how that would bind you also? I must do that again. Because you are not completely satisfied, so you feel temporarily satiated. So you feel that I need to really do the same thing all over again. This is what happens sometimes, you go to a new restaurant that you have never tried before. And it turns out to be very good. The food was excellent and the service was good. It exceeded your expectations. I remember somebody took us to a Peruvian restaurant. This was a couple of years back in Half Moon Bay. One of our neighbors, she was very fond of this Peruvian food. So she says, oh, you have to try it. So they take us to this Peruvian. And indeed, it was kind of different. Because we are used to the same thing. Indian food, Italian food, Chinese food, Mexican food. Those are the four that we normally make a variation of. Vietnamese also. But this Peruvian food we had never gone to. So this one happened to be a very good one. The next time we went there, somehow the same food didn't taste that well. For one thing, it was very expensive, hard to get to, and our expectations were also different. And so this is exactly what happens when the results are better than what you expect. You feel that somehow I would really repeat it and be very happy, but it doesn't really happen. So the karma is binding both ways. So he says that, in this verse he says, na adatte kasyachit papam na chaiva sukritam. So papam means that bad results. Sukritam means punya, like good results. Vibhuhu, the one which is nirdvandva, is not affected by that. It's not as though you don't enjoy. You should always enjoy things. It's okay. But you don't have this feeling that I must do this again or I should never do this again. Either one, I should not do something. He says vibhuhu. Vibhuhu means Vibhu is a very interesting and very important word. It consists of the prefix V, which represents vividha in different ways. And bhuhu means ekasattayam. Beautiful word, beautiful word. Vibhuhu. So vibhuhu means the one which is the same bhuhu, same satta, which powers the vividita. Vividita means viparita, viparita shila. Viparita shila means changes, differences. And it's the same self-jnanam. So just look at this. This is exactly what we're seeing in the Saturday classes. There is the same self which is powering all of the variations. The vibhuhu, the bhu doesn't change. Even though the vividha changes, but the bhu doesn't change. So really speaking, I think the fundamental aspect of this whole thing, if you look at the crux of this whole arguments about karma and vibhuhu and source of dukkha and etc., etc., it is this. Please pay more attention to the one that lights up the various experiences than on the experiences themselves. This is the very, if we just remember this basic fact, you will be very, very happy. And the result of this is, let the world be what it is. Let my experiences be what they are. They are flowing. You simply focus on yourself, the unchanging. There's so much that has gone by which is going back. Your parents, your children, your friends, flowing, flowing, flowing. Not only in this life, but in many lives. Here Swami Akhandananda had, he said, I remember, he talked about this in the, I think in one of the books. So he says that there was a Mahatma, when he was still a student and still trying to figure out everything. So he went to a Mahatma in one of the villages, close to a village where he used to live. And so where he was near Varanasi, and the river Ganga passes through Varanasi. And so this Mahatma told him, you know what I would recommend that you do? You please do meditation on the banks of a flowing river. So he said, yes, I see your suggestion, but why? So his Mahatma says, please see that the lives that we are engaged in is like a river which is flowing. And you cannot stop it. Like there is a huge river which is just going. And the whole river looks very stable and stationary as though, isn't it? Because you go to a big river, you go there today, it looks the same. You go there tomorrow, it looks the same. You go there 6 months from now, it looks the same. But it's not the same. Because the waves of the water are just flowing by, one after the other. So the advice is, in these chapters, make yourself very happy. Please focus in on the ananda that you are. But our problem is that I ignore that. I'm very involved in things that are happening outside. And I'm bothered by it. And then I complain. This whole world bothers me. Funny situation. And it's okay if that is the case for a non-Vedantic student. But there cannot be a better advice to a Vedantic student to say, asangoham. Just like you sit on the banks of a river and you see the flow, are you affected by it? Just actually enjoy the fact that you are just sitting at one place. And there is a flow going on. Let it go on. Why do you engage with it? If you're happy, fine, engage with it. You don't need to. So, this is the last topic in the series, which we will look into a bit more detail about the type of karma, expectations, and continuation of this last point. And with that, we will wrap up the attainment of non-attachment in this short series of classes. So that we will do next week. And so with that, I will pause and finish today's class. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So, good. Very good to see you all. All right. If there's no questions, then I take your leave and we will hopefully see you next week. Hari Om.